The good news is overflowing for New York's beverage industry as it grows bigger, stronger, and more diverse than ever. Once every other day, on average in 2014, the state issued another license to someone to operate a farm winery, or a brew pub, or a distillery, or cidery. This amazing growth is happening because of Governor Cuomo's vision of a state that makes it easier, cheaper, and faster for people to launch their dream businesses and help grow the state's economy. The numbers tell the story. During Governor Cuomo's administration, the number of winery licenses has grown by 67%. The number of brewery licenses has more than quadrupled. Distillery licenses up nearly 400% as well. Cideries, a six-fold increase. And it's not just quantity, it's quality too. New York beverages are winning hundreds of medals a year in competitions and earning rave reviews from experts. Since the first Wine, Beer, and Spirits Summit in 2012, New York State has made a host of major and minor changes, all with one goal: make it easier for beverage companies to make great products. These reforms have touched every aspect of the business of beverage making, from creating a one-stop source for licensing to eliminating rules and fees that block growth, from an aggressive advertising campaign in support of New York beverages to the Governor's Taste New York initiative to get great products in front of every New Yorker. An industry estimated to provide $3.5 billion in economic impact to the state is continuing to grow, and grow rapidly. It is a long list of changes and improvements, and we're not done yet. All of it is aimed at the key goal: helping the state beverage industry thrive. A thriving industry provides jobs, brings tourists to New York, and takes New York products to the world. New York's beverage industry is still growing because its producers make great products, and because New York State under Governor Cuomo is providing assistance as never before. So here is a toast to the winning formula that's helping New York's wine, beer, spirits, and cider producers thrive.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome to the Wine, Beer, Spirits, and Cider Summit. This is one of my favorite events of the year. It's our third one. Third or fourth? Third one. And it's really had magnificent results thus far, and I'm sure it's going to have even more. Let's begin by introducing the people who are here, some of the people who are here. I'll introduce people who are at the front table. Starting to my left, we have Assemblyman Bill McGee and Senator John Bonasek. Let's give them a big round of applause. They have been great partners in working to grow the industry, and I've had the good fortune of having a cooperative, productive relationship between the governor's office and the legislature, which doesn't happen a lot nowadays, but we've had a productive partnership, and a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is going to be done in partnership with the legislature. So I'm very glad that they could be here with us representing both the Assembly and the Senate. Our great Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul, is here, and let's give her a round of applause. Starting at the far right is Vincent Bradley, who is the chairman of the SLA, which is one of the toughest jobs in state government, I want you to know. Let's give him a round of applause. Howard Zemsky is one of the easiest jobs in state government. He's head of ESD, and let's give him a round of applause. Richard Ball, who is the Commissioner of Agriculture and has been fantastic on what he's done on this issue, and Jim Malatras, who's Director of State Operations, who's running the entire operation. Let's thank them for being here. And how about we go around the table, and John, why don't we start with you, introduce yourself, and tell us where you're from.
I am John Allegretto. I'm the Chief Supply Chain Officer for BJ's Restaurants and Brew House, not to be confused with BJ's Wholesalers, by the way. Our corporate office is in Huntington Beach, California, and Thank you for having me here at the summit. This is my second summit, first one sitting here on the panel, so thank you for having me.
I'm Trent Pressler. I'm the CEO of Bedell Cellars, which is on the North Fork of Long Island. And I'm chairman of the board of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation and also chairman of the board of Wine America. Happy to be here.
Derek Schlusselman. I have a small distillery in Brooklyn, Van Brunt Stillhouse. Thanks for having me.
Brian McKenzie. I'm the owner and president of Finger Lakes Distilling and also the current president of the New York State Distillers Guild.
I'm Rebecca Patel. I'm a program manager at the Carey Institute for Global Good in Rensselaerville.
I'm Ian Merwin. I'm an apple grower and cider maker at Black Diamond Cider in Trumansburg, New York, and I'm here representing the newly formed New York Cider Association.
I'm Paul Leone, executive director of the New York State Brewers Association, and this is my first summit, and I'm very honored to be here.
Julie Suarez, Assistant Dean from the College of Ag and Life Sciences at Cornell University. Really appreciate the partnership with the state of New York and your leadership. Thank you.
Good to see you, Julie.
Good morning. I'm Jim Treezais, the old wine guy. And my position is president of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, which was created by the state 30 years ago.
Good morning. I'm Roberta Reardon, and I'm the acting commissioner of the New York State Department of Labor.
Jeff Williams, Director of Public Policy at New York Farm Bureau. Thank you.
Kim Wagner, thank you for inviting me. I'm the owner of Stout Ridge Vineyard in Marlborough, New York, in Ulster County. I'm also the vice chair of the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, and I chair the Cornell Ag and Life Sciences Advisory Council.
I'm happy to be here. It's Tom Edwards, president of the New York State Liquor Store Association. I own Fox and Hound Wine and Spirits in New Paltz, New York, Ulster County. It's my second summit.
Gary Bergstrom. I'm a professor at Cornell University and one of the co-PIs on the state malting barley initiative, for which we're really grateful and excited with the state funding and support of that.
Kristen Lyons, the owner of Binghamton Brewing Company. This is my first summit, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Nick Mills, General Manager at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, the Baldwinsville Brewery, where we're making beer and ciders there too. And this is my first summit at the table, so great to be here.
Well, I had to come to you first, right?
Yeah.
I was there 2 weeks ago.
I'm Kevin Dano. I'm with the firm of Dano, McMullen & Panoff, and I represent people in all three tiers of the alcoholic beverage industry. We're very happy to be invited here, and thank you.
My name is Carrie Blackmore. I'm from Good Nature Farm Brewery and Tap Room. I should add that I'm the co-founder. We're New York State's first farm brewery, and we're in Madison County, former hops growing capital of the world, I believe. Very excited to be here as well. It's my second summit.
And last but not least, sitting in the same seat in all three summits, thank you for having me back. I'm Rob Bookman. I'm an attorney who specializes in the ABC law, and I'm here representing the New York City Hospitality Alliance.
I think that's why we put you in that seat, because you're the... I'm just kidding. Yeah. Nah, lawyers, they always put in the back. We also have a number of legislators who are here, and if I could ask them to stand as I call their name. Again, you met Senator John Bonasek and Assemblyman Bill McGee, and you'll hear from them in a moment. But Senator Joseph Griffo is with us also. Senator David Valesky. Can you stand, Joe? And Senator David Valesky. Arlene Hooper. Assemblywoman Dee Dee Barrett is here. Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi is here. Assemblyman Clifford Crouch is here. Assemblywoman Patricia Fahey is here. Assemblyman Pete Lopez is here. Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo. Assemblyman John McDonald. Assemblyman Andrew Rea. Assemblywoman Addie Russell. Did I miss anybody? We could almost pass a bill with this many people. Boy, sometimes the legislature's in session, we don't have this many people. Well, this is it's a great turnout, and it's exciting, and it shows the significance of this issue, and frankly, the progress we've made. We have a lot of new faces. Let me just give you a little bit of the context for those of you who missed the first two and how we got to this point. We started this right from the get-go, the legislature and myself. Our first priority was focusing on the economy of the state, because the economy is the engine that pulls the train. If people are working, if the economy's running, you can do a lot of good. If the economy is not working, frankly, you're very limited in what you can actually do. And there were parts of this state's economy that were slow, especially upstate New York, out on eastern Long Island, southern tier, where the economy had been slow for decades. And the state really wasn't part of the solution. You could argue that it had been part of the problem. Not that we started the economic issue. A lot of the problem, especially in upstate New York, was just an economic cycle that had moved away from manufacturing. But the state was not a cooperative partner with economic development, let's say that. And you could argue that a lot of the state policies were actually counterproductive. You know, when you are the highest tax state in the nation, it's going to be a problem for business, especially as business becomes more mobile and people become more mobile. When you had an attitude, which I call the hangover New York arrogance that we had, that we were New York, all businesses are going to be here, people are going to stay here, where else would you go? We're New York, you can't go anywhere else, you know. We had a little bit of that bravado about us. And historically, New York did have a different position. Well, that cost us, because people said, if you're going to torture business and torture the economy, we will find another place to go. And we saw an exodus. So we had an awakening a few years ago, and the state changed its ways. First rule is, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, right? And part of it is we were digging ourselves into the hole. So we reversed our policies. We cut state spending dramatically. We have a lower rate of state spending now than we have in 50 years. Because the state is spending less, we can cut taxes. And we have cut taxes all across the board. And we've sent a very different message to the business community that we get it, stay with us, grow with us, we want you here. And that is resonating. We also then took a very proactive role in going out and creating jobs. And we focused region by region, because there really is no one state economy. There are different regional economies. You can have the New York City economy doing great, and you can be doing very poorly in the North Country, right? So the only strategy was really a region-by-region specific economic development strategy. And that we did, and we're doing through what we call the Regional Economic Development Councils, which was a very creative process for a state government to involve itself in. We then took it one step further, and we said, why don't we find specific industries and sit down at the table with a specific industry and see how to grow that industry. And how, if you put government and the industry together at the same table, you can really come up with a strategy to grow that industry. One of the first industries we started with was the yogurt industry. And they laughed. They had a lot of jokes. Governor Cuomo has yogurt summit, and they made funny jokes. I didn't think it was funny, by the way, but they thought it was funny. We now make more Greek yogurt than Greece, believe it or not. And it wasn't just about the yogurt. It was yogurt comes from milk, milk comes from cows, dairy is a big industry in the state, so it's really stimulated the whole dairy industry. We sat down on the tourism industry. We sat down on the high-tech industry. And we sat down on the wine and beer industry. Now, the wine and beer industry, there's no doubt the state, in my opinion, was an obstacle to the growth. Why? Because we have laws that are administered by the State Liquor Authority, but the SLA did not write the laws, right? They administer the laws. The laws came from a different time and place, basically during Prohibition. And they were written in a different point in history. And really, they have no application to what is going on now. So there's a constant struggle between the SLA laws and this new growing industry that really is redefining all the lines. So the laws were slowing us down, and we did a lot of work changing those laws. We'll do more work today changing those laws. We have more work to do changing those laws, and that's why it's so great that the members of the legislature are here. We also talked in the beginning about the synergy between the wine and beer industry and tourism. And we heavily promoted tourism and the wine and beer industry specifically. We invested $60 million in tourism promotion, okay? A lot of money. And we had significant discussions with the legislature about that investment. $60 million in the I Love New York and all the advertising. Tourism went up $4 billion, believe it or not. If we can get that return on our money, I will do that all day long. $60 million, and we go up $4 billion. And the progress, as you saw in the video, on the numbers, it is just phenomenal what is going on with this industry. And I don't think when we first sat down, any of us really thought that the industry could take off as quickly as it has. But it is unbelievable. It started as basically a regional industry, a little bit on Long Island and in the Finger Lakes. It's now in 59 of 62 counties in the state. Craft beer, $3.5 billion industry. Wineries, 64,000 jobs for the state, $10 billion. Distilleries, 45,000 jobs now in the state of New York by distilleries, which would have been unheard of a few years ago. This year, Wine Enthusiast magazine awarded us the Wine Region of the Year, beating out, listen to this, Champagne, France, Chianti, Italy, and Sonoma, California. That's the state of New York. So the point of today is basically, what else can we do? What else should we be doing? What's the next step? What are the next ideas? If we want to grow more, if we want to push the envelope more, if we want to get more aggressive, what are the next steps? I have a couple of ideas that I want to throw out and that we've been discussing in preparation for today. First, we have more work to do on the SLA laws. And we have Vincent Bradley here, but more importantly, we have the legislators here. We still need to make those laws fit the industry. They are unnecessarily handcuffing creativity. And there's no reason for it because the urge to protect is actually restricting. So I'm looking for your advice on what legal changes we should be making to the SLA laws, and I'm sure the legislators would be interested in those also. I think we should increase the promotion ads. I think that rate of return on the I Love New York campaign is extraordinary. We do wine and beer ads specifically on tourism. Howard Zemsky is going to show you the newest, but I would increase that by $5 million just for the wine and beer industry because I think that is paying dividends and we should continue that. I think we should focus, especially for Long Island. We have 50 million visitors coming into New York City internationally. 50 million visitors going to New York City. A big part of what we've been trying to do is get those 50 million just to go north, right? And just to go east. God bless New York City. It's a great magnet for tourism all across the globe. But you come to New York City, we want to say there's even more to see than New York City. Enjoy New York City, and then come to the Hudson Valley, come to the Finger Lakes, go see Niagara Falls. I want to spend a promotion budget of about $500,000 getting people from New York City specifically targeted to Long Island, because that's a half-day trip. We can run charters like that. The Long Island wine and beer industry is exploding. And if we get some more revenue and some more traffic, it's even going to be better. I think we should invest in more R&D, and the state is prepared to put $7 million in the Food Venture Center in Geneva to experiment on new techniques for wineries and beer labs. I think that's a good investment. A lot of people come up to me and say, I want to start up a brewery, et cetera, but I can't find that initial seed capital. We have the Global New York Fund, which is basically an equity investment fund, and I would dedicate for startup businesses a $5 million revolving loan pool, zero interest loans up to $50,000 for startup businesses. So we can give them the first loan before they really qualify for a bank. And I think that would be a worthwhile investment. And I think we should think about an initiative that we want to start next year. But it'd be interesting to see how you're part of that. With Commissioner Ball and the Commissioner of Health, Zucker, we're going to start an initiative that I just want to preview a little bit, but not enough that the press can write about it. There is a growing market for foods and products where people know the content and the origin, right? There's a sensitivity about know your food, know what you're putting into your body. And there is an opportunity for this state to certify and regulate organic so that when a consumer knows they're buying this product really is what it says it is in terms of how it was prepared and how it was grown. And I think that's going to be applicable to your industry also. They want to know what they're drinking was properly produced and what went in it. And when you say pesticide-free, it's really pesticide-free. And we're looking for a way that the state, through the Agriculture Department and the Health Department, could actually verify for the consumer this is a safe product, this is a 100% organic product, et cetera. How would you fit into that? But more than anything, what do you think? What do you want? How do we help? You know what you're dealing with every day, and we're here to find out from you what we should be doing. Last point, there is no doubt that we have come a very long way very quickly. And at one point, when you talked about wine from New York, it was almost a joke that we were in the wine industry. It's no joke anymore. This is not just a big business, but this is a business that is highly respected, with a product that is highly respected internationally. This is an art, it's a craft, and the more promotion and the more people see and are exposed to our product, the better we are doing. And to me, I said at the first summit, we just have to let them see and taste, and the more we get it out there, the more it's going to grow. But it has been phenomenal. I also believe that now once you get the momentum going and the synergy going, it feeds on itself, right? And that's what's happening. There is now an energy among your businesses that is feeding your businesses. Because people don't come to see one distillery. They don't go to see one brewery. They don't go to see one winery. They go to see 3. They go to see 4. They go to do a wine trail. And putting all of that together, you're really feeling now the exponential impact. I was at Anheuser-Busch in Baldwinsville 2 weeks ago. It's amazing how many products and how many relationships are now developing that didn't exist and how many ideas. So at one point, you start to feed, the positive feeds on itself. And that's the point we're at. There are 2 people who really gave the industry a jump start a long, long time ago, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, we had about 200,000 visitors who would visit wineries, distilleries, and we had a handful in the state. We now have 5 million visitors this year, okay, in 30 years. And the wine industry was struggling, and My father was instrumental in putting together an organization called the Wine and Grape Foundation that worked with the Department of Agriculture, at that time Commissioner Gerasi. So Mario Cuomo was very helpful, and he worked with a man named Jim Trezeis, who has been at the table for 30 years. He is going to retire this year, but there is no person who is more responsible for taking this industry from a seed, pardon the metaphor, to the blossoming industry that it is today than Jim Trezeis. He believed in this industry, he put his heart and soul into it, and we wouldn't be where we are today without Jim Trezeis. So let's give him a round of applause. Jim, why don't you say a few words, if you don't mind?
Well, I was just doing my job. Governor, I'm very moved, and I'm very honored to be here today at another summit. I would just like to use two words that I believe are shared by everyone in this room. Thank you. Thank you for all that you've done, all that your administration has done, your colleagues. Thank to the legislature for all that they have done as well. It's so inspiring for me, the old wine guy. That means I like old wine, but young wine too. It's so inspiring for me to see where this industry came from and where it is today. And it's also inspiring for me to see our colleagues in the beer, spirits, and cider industries growing as well, and learning, I hope, from us, our failures as well as our successes. I certainly am honored with your words. I just want to say also that this recognition belongs to hundreds, thousands of grape growers and winery owners and public officials and farm families who just decided that they would not give up in the darkest of times and that they would work together. And I have always said diversity is our strength and unity is our power. So I suppose if there's one small contribution I made, perhaps it's delivering that sermon and getting people to work together. So that's it for now. I do have other suggestions later on for the summit, but you really caught me off guard.
Thank you. Jim Trezeis, another round of applause. Okay, John. And as I mentioned earlier, the state government only works when the relationship between the governor and the legislature works well. And the better that relationship works, the more you can actually get done. And for me, it's all about getting things done and making progress. That's the point of government. And luckily, we've had a great recent history when it comes to that. And the credit goes to my partners in the legislature, one of whom I would like to introduce now to kick it off, State Senator John Bonasek. John?
Thank you, Governor. Governor, thank you for the warm introduction. I'm still a little bummed out with the Yankees' loss last night, you know. But I'm here on behalf of our Majority Leader, Senator Flanagan. I was drafted last night to come here. So I had a quick read on the beverage industry. And there's just 3 or 4 points that I like to make that knocked my socks off when I started looking into this industry. Okay, real quick. Number one, we have over 600 beer, wine, spirits, and cider establishments in the state of New York. That's pretty amazing. Number two, $27 billion impact. So I say to all of the entrepreneurs in this room, thank you for your skill, your intelligence, and your risk capital to get involved in this industry and make it grow, and the jobs that you have created. Because when you win, government wins. The other thing are farm breweries. 32 farm breweries have now been established since we issued licenses in 2013. And the last fact, we are number 3 in the state of New York in wine production. So as a New Yorker, and I'm not putting words in the governor's mouth, I would say to Jim, we have work to do. We got to be number 1. You know that. So I will say to you that as a result of these summits, there has been some regulatory relief, there has been some legislation that helps your industry, and there has been some fee reduction. We want to do more. So I would ask the entrepreneurs in this room that are involved in those industries, write to us. Tell us what specific things you want to see changed. And we promise you that we will work with you to help your business grow. We don't believe profit is a dirty word. Thank you very much. And at this time, I want to introduce my good friend and colleague, Assemblyman McGee.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. It is my pleasure to be here today, and I thank Governor Cuomo for hosting this 3rd annual Wine, Beer, Spirits, and Cider Summit. These summits play an integral role in identifying opportunities for these growing industries. We are seeing increases in promotion, distribution, and tourism because of our prior summits, and that's all been laid out by the governor, and I applaud him for that. The ideas of today are the reforms of tomorrow, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here to represent on behalf of my Assembly colleagues, and I look forward to hearing what everyone has to offer today, because these summits truly have produced results, and we look for more. Now I would like to give it back to the governor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Assemblyman. The 4 main executive actors for the state in this area we'll hear from briefly. First, Chairman Vincent Bradley, then head of the ESD, Howard Zemsky, Commissioner Ball, and Commissioner Roberta Reardon from the Department of Labor. You want to start off, Vince?
Sure, Governor, thank you. We have a little PowerPoint presentation. As you've heard, under the leadership of Governor Cuomo, New York's beverage industry is thriving. The past legislative session, as a result of what we learned during these summits, the governor signed into law bills that expand opportunities for craft beverage manufacturers across New York. The governor signed new legislation to enhance merchandising opportunities to increase business. Now farm distillers can open gift shops where they can sell locally, produce food, souvenirs, and other gift items. This legislation is important. New manufacturers we talk to across the state tell us that operating their tasting rooms and selling gift items can be the difference between profit and loss in the early years of their operation. The governor has we've simplified tax requirements for all types of manufacturers. Microbreweries are now exempt from filing redundant tax forms, and the state no longer requires sales tax to be collected for products used at tastings by breweries, cideries, and distilleries. Governor Cuomo is continuing to connect the industry with world-class research institutions. The Culinary Institute of America recently entered into a partnership with Brooklyn Brewery to build a small brewery on campus as part of the college's Brewing Science and Technology course. This is great news for all of us, as the brew house will be open to the public as well. As a result of discussions during and following the previous summits, the governor signed the Craft Beverage Act to cut through bureaucracy and grow business in this industry. The Craft Beverage Act accomplished 4 main items. First, it reduces costs for small manufacturers by increasing the production cap without increasing fees. This will keep the cost of entry into the industry low while allowing our manufacturers to sell more products without bumping up against the cap. Second, the CRAFT Act allows craft producers to conduct tastings and sell by the bottle or by the glass the products they manufacture without a separate license. Next, the law increases the number of retail outlets where a farm distillery can sample and sell. Now all our farm manufacturers can operate branch offices, increasing their ability to market their products to consumers. And finally, the Craft Beverage Act lowers the food requirements that must be met by manufacturers when offering tastings and consumption. Manufacturers can now have taverns or pubs offering light menu items rather than incurring the expense of operating a restaurant with a fully staffed kitchen. The SLA has also worked to reform its regulations in these areas. A few top-level reforms that we are really proud of and what the industry is giving us very positive feedback for include cutting the manufacturer's marketing permit by half, allowing multiple manufacturing licenses at the same location, enabling craft manufacturers to sell by the bottle at tastings, extending the duration of winery licenses from 1 to 3 years, and ending the $1,000 surety bond previously required for farm wineries. These reforms fit in with the comprehensive strategy to grow the beverage industry in New York. To now speak to the marketing and economic aspect of the beverage industry, please welcome Empire State Development Commissioner and CEO Howard Zemsky.
Thank you, Chairman Bradley. Just before I launch into the slides, I want to recognize a real stalwart at ESD and someone who's been a great champion of this industry, Sam Filler. Sam. It's great to be with what I would describe as the most dynamic, creative, enthusiastic, and fun industry in the state. Governor, I have to say, if we could just splice a little DNA from this industry and put it in all the other economic sectors of the state, you are right, I would have the easiest job in state government, because it's amazing what they have accomplished. So to market this really burgeoning industry, we created the $6 million craft beverage promotion program, and it had several components. One, $1 million to boost tourism, to promote destinations, attractions, and special events. $4 million marketing match grants, which leveraged $2 million of state money with $2 million of private sector money. And $1 million advertising, split evenly, just like my consumption, between beer, wine, spirits, and cider. Our $6 million investment is making a significant difference for this industry. We have already funded 25 marketing match programs and have 15, this is one of the most popular programs, a tourism program. We have 15 projects that we are funding that have consumed the $1 million for this aspect. We have also launched 2 major advertising campaigns, and through those we're directly reaching more than 250,000 consumers. The New York Wine and Grape Foundation book-a-zine, I want to demonstrate how creative this industry is. They invent their own words. 200,000 went to wine enthusiast subscribers and 100,000 sent to wineries throughout the state. And the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce just last weekend ran its Cheers New York Craft Beverage and Food Festival. ESD additionally has awarded the New York State Brewers Association $200,000 to support regional craft beverage festivals in New York, Albany, Utica, Rochester, and Syracuse.
And to drive these many efforts home, we also created the one-stop shop to work directly with partner agencies and cut through their bureaucracy. And I know these have been this one-stop has been extremely successful and helpful to industry. We've helped over 600 partners in this industry since the inception. And we have only just scratched the surface in these descriptions of how we've helped this industry. We're also actively engaged in social media and a lot of other promotion, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or the other myriad of ways that people are digesting information and promotional information today. So we're actively involved in all of those. Our hard work is very definitely paying off. Last week, Governor, you announced the $62 million investment by Anheuser-Busch for its Baldwinsville facility. ESD helped with $2 million of Excelsior tax credits. And this investment, importantly, expands their capacity and protects over 440 jobs here in New York. With that, I want to introduce everyone to the latest Bobby Flay ad that is currently running.
I'm Bobby Flay, and New York is my home. There's no place like it in the world. Come fall, I like to get a taste of everything the state has to offer, like this famous winery nestled in the Hudson Valley, or the award-winning vineyards of Long Island. This Cooperstown brewery belongs in every beer lover's Hall of Fame. You can even try New York's exceptional cider and spirits. This fall, drink in the beauty of New York State. Plan your trip at iloveny.com. There's something for everyone.
Well, Governor, as you can see, we've been very active promoting this industry. It's really extremely important industry across the state, particularly important and vital to the upstate economy, and we're proud to be participating in the growth of this business. It's my pleasure now to introduce Commissioner Richard Ball, who I should let everyone know was recently named the #1 commissioner in New York State by Commissioner Quarterly. And
little known publication.
Who publishes that publication?
No, it's a bookazine. Anyway, Ags has done an amazing job in this industry, so it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Commissioner Richard Ball.
I'd like a couple of copies of that to send to Mom, if you don't mind. Thank you so much, Commissioner Zemsky, even though you do have the easiest job. Governor, it's really great to be here at a summit. You like summits, I like summits, because even in this day and age of instant communications, cell phones, email, everything, there's no shortcut to actually having eye contact with a group of people like this, good minds around the same table. So really great to be here with you all. Thank you so much. I've got a couple of slides here. This industry is just growing so exponentially. On the farm, we look at 2 and 3 and 5 and 10% growth and get excited, but when you look at the numbers we're looking at, this gains national attention. Our success is across the board, but I'm going to start with the wineries first. The success of our New York State wineries has been recognized on a national and a global scale. Since 2011, there have been more than a 67% increase in licenses that have been issued. Last year alone, more than 200 million bottles of wine were produced in New York State. And together, this makes New York State the 3rd largest producer of wine in the United States. Given these staggering statistics, it is no surprise that New York is the new Napa, the new Sonoma, and this growth has a direct impact on our agritourism economy. New York has been named Wine Region of the Year by Wine Enthusiast magazine. The Finger Lakes was named a 2015 top 10 wine tourism destination. And Traminette, one of the 50 grape varieties developed by Cornell, was named Outstanding Fruit Cultivar for 2015 by the American Society for Horticultural Science. Big news. But New York breweries are also seeing incredible growth as a result of our lowering the costs for business, cutting red tape, and amplifying our promotion industry. Over the last 4 years, we've experienced a 436% increase in new licenses issued there. The growth of the craft beer industry has meant a major boost to the New York State economy. This industry has a staggering $3.5 billion economic impact in New York. And today there is a brewery in 9 out of every 10 New York counties. Next up, distilleries. Perhaps the biggest boost for our New York State distilleries came with the creation of the farm distillery license. But additional changes implemented by Governor Cuomo have also provided the support needed to help that industry thrive. Reforms from the previous summits we've held have saved producers over $400,000 just in fees. When Governor Cuomo took office, the state had only 10 farm distilleries, and we've increased that by 400%. Distilleries have a growing impact on our jobs, too. Since 2011, the number of jobs has increased more than 60%. And the growth is not just upstate. Distilleries are popping up downstate, and Brooklyn itself is home to over 16 different distilling companies. Got a vegetable farmer mentality here. Finally, New York is leading the way in the comeback of cider production. The New York Cider Association was officially formed earlier this year, and since the passage of the Farm Cidery Law last year, New York now has 35 licensed cideries, in addition to 405 licensed farm wineries and farm breweries. In fact, there has been a 600% increase in licenses for cideries since 2011. This sector of the beverage industry is really booming, and we're committed to building on this progress. The growth of the craft beverage industry increases the demand for locally grown agricultural products. And to nurture this growth, the state has invested $350,000 for research just on malting barley. We are partnered with Cornell University College of Ag and Life Sciences, which was recognized as the #1 global university for plant and animal science. Pause for a round of applause for Cornell, please. And Hartwick College, which launched New York's first Center for Craft Food and Beverage to provide testing services for product quality and improvement for malt barley producers. Taste New York, one of the best ways we can start to connect the dots here. Great program. It's an important partner in this beverage industry growth. The governor's initiative was created in 2013 to showcase the very best of the state's food and beverage industries, and our promotional efforts are a critically important component to the growth of the industry. And again, a great way to connect the dots between our producers and our consumers. Taste New York contributes more than $5.2 million in revenue every year. Taste New York currently has 12 retail stores and is expanding into concession venues to reach new markets and consumers, like here in Albany at the Times Union Center and in Western New York at Dwyer Stadium. And we recently began expanding into transportation hubs and service plazas, from Grand Central Station to our newest Taste New York store at the brand new E13 Lock Rest Area in the Mohawk Valley. Since 2013, we've hosted 122 events where the state has helped more than 1,000 small businesses link their products to the global market. And Governor Cuomo has grown the Wine Cup to be a staple of the summer season here in New York. It's an annual event now, Jim. In 2015, this was a huge success. And this year, the Governor's Cup champion was Ventosa Vineyards, a boutique winery on Seneca Lake. Another pause for a round of applause, please. And what has become a landmark Taste New York presence at the State Fair is blossoming with each passing year, and this season was really big. Nearly 1 million people were able to experience New York State food and beverages at the New York State Fair. 65 Taste New York vendors participated, and we saw a 40% increase in wine sales and more than doubled our sale of beer and distilled spirits there. All of this to say that New York is on the cusp of a record increase in business. We're on the edge of a renaissance. Taste New York is on track to triple its sales this year over the past year, 2014. These are exciting times for New York. We're not only in a good place geographically with good climate, access to water, good growers, we're at a good place in time here in New York. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a close partner in our mission here in the beverage industry and in so many other important initiatives for the state of New York and agriculture. We have a brand new labor commissioner, and Roberta Reardon. Please give her a round of applause.
And thank you, Governor, for having me here today. It's a real honor. This is my first full week on the job, and I don't know, am I crazy to hope that every event will be as tasty and welcoming as this event? This is really tremendous news. It's great to see so many beer, wine, spirits, and cider manufacturers here, and clearly from the news there are so many more of you now than there were just a few years ago. With hundreds of jobs created and double-digit job growth in the industry, you are leading a resurgent New York, and congratulations to this industry. Since Governor Cuomo took office, the state's economy has added more than 700,000 private sector jobs, bringing the total count to above 7.8 million jobs in the state in the private sector. On top of that, the unemployment rate dropped to 5.2% in August of this year, which is its lowest level since May of 2008, and that is really tremendously great news. And while these are great figures, your success is equally impressive. For example, every region is represented in this room, from Chautauqua County in western New York with 21 Bricks Winery to the tip of Suffolk County with Long Island Spirits and others, and then through the North Country with High Peaks Winery. And in addition, the growth in your industry has a multiplying effect that benefits all New Yorkers. It means more jobs for everyone, from truck drivers to sales force, from the teamster working at the Baldwinsville Anheuser-Busch plant to the farm worker picking grapes in the Finger Lakes. Truly, success brings more success, and jobs really bring more jobs to the state of New York. Today's summit exemplifies the work that this administration is doing to move New York forward, and we see the proof of that, pardon the pun, around us every day. I'm honored to join these exciting initiatives, and today I am rolling up my sleeves and ready to get to work. And now, it is my great pleasure to hand it over to our wonderful Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, we'd like to open up the conversation with our participants, and also, Governor, I was trying to think about how I could contribute to this industry and what role I could play, and I've decided I could do a lot more for the administration by going under reconnaissance missions to all the wineries and breweries and distilleries. In fact, my staff made up a list of all the places I've been, and it's actually so long, I'm actually going to put this away right now. But just this past Saturday, we were in Seneca Falls for the Women's Hall of Fame, and we stopped on our way back, Howard, using the book Azine very successfully as we went and visited Ventosa and 3 or 4 others. But, Governor, you need to know that the universal message I hear, whether I'm at a cidery, distillery, winery, brewery, is one of gratitude. The fact that you have put a laser focus on this industry. There's not one person when I walk into one of these institutions, these facilities, who does not come up to me and say, please thank the governor. So on behalf of the people all across the state, I want to thank you. Jim, I'd like to open up with you and get your comments, and thank you for participating with us just earlier this summer at the Governor's Cup.
It was a lot of fun, absolutely.
It was a great time.
Thank you very much for coming.
We'd like your reflections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have my composure back now, so I guess I can proceed. Anyway, you know, this is a very special occasion in a very special state with very special people. And as I said before, my sermon has been very simple. Diversity is our strength, unity is our power. And that goes beyond the wine industry. It really talks about everybody in this room. So, Governor, as you know, in Albany, it takes 3 to tango. You can't do everything yourself that you want to do, so you have to go to the Senate and the Assembly and get them to cooperate as well. It takes leadership, it takes cooperation, and so forth. It also is very important that we in the industry have wonderful partners like we do at this table, like Commissioner Ball from Agriculture and Markets, which for 30 years, Ag and Markets has been our principal partner and fabulous. Empire State Development used to be relatively passive compared with, we've always had somebody on our board, but until your administration, we really didn't communicate, and we certainly didn't get any support, and that has all changed since 2011. The State Liquor Authority used to be the bane of my existence for many, many, many years, and now they're our best friends. They're wonderful partners. We work together collegially, and I think very constructively to help move things along as well. Department of Labor as well. So the administration, the legislature, the governor's office, and the industry, when we all come together, we can accomplish incredible things. The other thing I want to say is that because of your vision, New York is unique. We're the first state and still the only state to understand that wine, beer, spirits, and cider are all part of the same family. The raw ingredients come from New York soil, and the farm families who grow them are rooted here. The end products are beverages that taste good, are great quality, and consumed in moderation, are good for the body and great for the soul, as we will find out later today. Also, I don't understand why other states don't get it, because if you take a look, the increased business climate, the improved business climate here in New York has had huge benefits that you alluded to in terms of the growth of the industry. The New York wine industry, contributes $4.8 billion, beer $3.5 billion, and we hope to get economic impact studies for cider and spirits as well, because they have major contributions as well. So we're basically an economic engine and also an enhancer of our quality of life in New York and New York's reputation as a great farm state and a great beverage state as well. We in the wine sector have been around by the longest by far. And if indeed imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, we're certainly very flattered that our colleagues in the beer, spirits, and cider industries and also the state government has taken some pages out of our book to help those industries grow faster than perhaps they would have before. So we applaud that approach, that unified approach to all of the beverages. And after all, why reinvent the wheel? We're also really grateful for the abilities to manufacture all the beverages under one roof and to collaborate in terms of marketing our various wonderful products. I'm so happy to hear about the funding that you talked about before, because that was on my wish list, so I can cross that off now. But I can tell you that the funding from the previous summit has allowed all of us in all four sectors to do things that we would not have been able to do. And so it's really, really good. The matching funds, there were some of those left, but the other funds were depleted, so I'm so happy to hear that there's going to be a new round of funding as well. Also, thanks to the previous summits, because of the many legislative and regulatory changes that have already been made, my wish list has gotten somewhat shorter. But there are a few things that I'd like to suggest be considered. First, under the auspices of the State Liquor Authority, to convene a working group to take a fresh look at the alcohol beverage control law and ways that it might be simplified and improved. Number two, to allow wineries and farm wineries to open home winemaking centers where hobbyists could use the wineries' facilities to make their own wines rather than their basements and garages. And that would also provide a new income stream for the wineries as well. Number three, allow the State Liquor Authority to approve bona fide...
Excuse me one second, Jim. Can you go back to number 2 again, just a little more detail on that?
Yep, so that a winery could basically operate a home winemaking center so that somebody who doesn't have a license as a winery but makes fewer than 250 gallons a year could use the winery's facility. As long as everything is kept separate and documented, they could use the winery's winemaking equipment and tanks and so forth to make their homemade wine rather than having to do it at home with carboys and other things as well.
So a winery could basically rent access to a hobbyist?
Exactly, exactly.
That's now prohibited by the law?
That's our understanding. So maybe it's just a clarification, but I think it is prohibited.
Okay.
Number 3, allow the State Liquor Authority to approve bona fide wine schools, in other words, wine education centers, with basically a miscellaneous permit. In other words, they would make sure that the school is legitimate, that the curriculum fits the needs, that there are controls in place to make sure that there's no problem with alcohol misuse, abuse, and so forth. I think that would be very good, because in the wine business, wine education is a very, very important part of helping our industry grow, and there are many good wine educators. Number 4, create a new separate one-stop shop service within the SLA itself. Now, please don't get me wrong. Sam Filler and Molly Bauer have done a fabulous job ever since the beginning of prompting many inquiries and promptly replying to them as well. But I believe that probably at least 90% of those have to do with the ABC law and the SLA rules. So instead of taking the extra step and calling Sam or Molly, just go directly to the SLA and save that time. And then Sam and Molly could use their time to look at other issues as well. Number 5 is to have the Department of Taxation and Finance develop a database using existing information that they already have to provide annual summaries of the taxes paid by the various craft beverage sectors in order to help measure their economic impact and to track their growth over time. Number 6, allow farm wineries and farm cideries to have their products packaged by an independent canning line so that they may be sold at sports stadiums and other venues that do not allow glass. And actually, canned wine is coming on pretty strong at this point. But it would be a big investment for farm wineries or farm cideries to have to invest in a whole new line. So if they could farm it out to an existing supplier that already uses cans, that would save a lot of money.
And what's the issue there? Is it the law again?
It's my understanding, yes.
What could that law be, Vince? That you have to bottle it on site now?
I think it's more the container that they're in that is the problem. And he's asking for it to go to a separate business to bottle it, which is against the law currently, but it's certainly something we can look into.
Yep.
Yep. And then finally, and this is one that continues to continue exploring ways in which the inequitable tariff situation at the Canadian border might be resolved to the benefit of our wineries in the North Country and Niagara. Basically, Canadians cannot go back into their country with more than a bottle and a half of wine without paying a huge tariff. So they're not, when they come to New York and visit the wineries, they're sampling and having a wonderful time and, maybe staying in a hotel, but they're not taking wine back. Whereas Americans who go to Canada, which makes good wine as well, they can bring back pretty much unlimited quantities. The problem is it's legal. It's a tax imposed, a tariff imposed by the provincial government, so it does comply with WTO and so forth, but it's unfair, and so it's always good to take a look at it. I believe, Governor, that most of these potential changes could be accomplished without legislation. Perhaps some would require legislation, but I would ask you and your colleagues to give them serious consideration. And again, let me just thank you, especially for letting us know so clearly that you want us here in New York. That means a lot.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Excuse me one second, Governor. We'll take a quick look as to whether or not, Chairman Bradley will take a quick look as to whether or not we can do it by regulation. If we can do it by regulation, these all sound more than reasonable. If we need legislation, I always love to get legislation done. It's always fun. But if we can, I mean that sincerely. I don't know why you laugh. But if we can do it by regulation, it's a little quicker than legislation. So we'll take a look. Otherwise, we'll get it done by legislation.
Thank you.
That's really good.
All right, thank you, Jim. At this point, we'd like to call on Brian McKenzie, the president of the New York State Distillers Guild, for his comments, reflections, and recommendations.
Governor,
thanks so much for the opportunity to be here today. I've attended the other summits that have been held, and happy to be here to speak directly on behalf of our industry. Again, my name is Brian McKenzie. I own a small distillery up in the Finger Lakes, and I'm also serving as the president of the New York Distillers Guild, which is a fairly young organization, still trying to find our way in some ways. So I think back to when I started my business back in 2008, and it took us about a year to get licensed with the state. It seemed like every organization that we dealt with kind of served as a roadblock, and you know, it was not a great situation starting a business. Things have changed significantly. You know, agencies like the State Liquor Authority having direct access to someone like Tom Donahue, for instance, for help interpreting the ABC law. Sam Filler's been a definite game changer for us to be able to deal with certain issues. So it's really refreshing. I think a lot of people in the room would agree that as we try to grow our businesses and make an impact on the state economy, that it's a better relationship with the agencies. So as you saw earlier, the distilleries represent one of the fastest growing segments in the craft beverage industry. We're producing spirits in every corner of the state and are using all kinds of raw material to do so. Just like our other industry partners, we're generating significant tax revenue, $1.70 per liter. That's pretty significant, and creating jobs and supporting tourism and agriculture. Our businesses are growing like crazy, but we're also, like I said, trying to find our way as a guild. Not all of our members rely on New York State agricultural products to make their product line. So we feel we need to ensure that the policy changes can support the whole industry, but still strengthen our ties between producers and growers. For instance, we have people in the industry that are making rum, and until we find a way to grow some sugar cane here in the state, they need to look outside. Some other challenges, I think there's still some perception that the distilleries make the bad alcohol, higher proof spirits. So sometimes we feel that the playing field needs to be leveled a little bit, because the legal equivalent for spirit that would be poured in a small cocktail or something like that is the same with beer and wine. With our organization, we're totally member-driven, which presents another set of challenges. We're all trying to operate our young businesses, but also trying to work as a team to grow the industry. We really envy the wine and beer industries having Jim Treesice and Paul Leone to kind of take the helm there. Jim, is it too early to see if you can come out of retirement to give us a hand? But to answer your questions and make some suggestions, I guess first, the CRAFT Act meant a lot to our business, allowing the drinks by the glass provision, and also the branch office. The promotional funds have allowed us to pursue a consumer-facing website, which isn't quite complete yet, but we think it's going to really help promote our businesses. A lot of the success of our industry has been the result of direct access to the consumer. And I think if you ask most of our members, they'll tell you that their physical location is really their best sales tool, and many of us sell 50% or more of our product right out of our tasting rooms. So the branch office seems like a great concept to enhance this opportunity. The CRAFT Act allowed us to operate an additional branch office, but we'd like to see maybe the 5 that are allowed, like the wineries. And the other thing that might be a nice tweak would be able to allow farm businesses to share the cost of branch offices. It's currently interpreted that really only one license can hold that branch office, and if there's ways to share those costs, I think it could allow that business model to thrive in New York State. Another way we can directly engage with the public is through off-site tastings. And the enhanced privileges that were made possible through the marketing permits have been a great tool, but I think there's other things that can be done. Currently, a lot of these opportunities are through not-for-profit events, and the not-for-profits generally will apply for a temporary beer and wine permit to operate their event, and they can't charge, that's the only way that they can charge admission for the event. So that really doesn't allow us to participate in those kinds of things. So if there was some way to have a additional permit that would allow the tasting of all New York-made beverages, we think that would be a good thing for our industry. Just a couple small things here, quick things here. Tax reporting for our industry is very confusing in that we are required to report in liters to New York State, whereas all of our federal forms are in proof gallons. So that's something that we'd like to see addressed. The economic impact study that Jim mentioned, I think would be a great thing for our industry if there's any way to help us fund something like that. And I know this one's a little tricky, but the shipping privileges that some of the other industries have, when it comes to our customers, there's no way to ship our products unless we're sending it to a licensed entity. So if there's anything that can be done there. A lot of what's been accomplished has been focused on promoting New York spirits in New York State, which is great. But I think a lot of our members are thinking beyond the local opportunities and even looking at international sales. So I think the international trade missions that you've been putting together are a great way for us to promote our products. And it seems to me right now that the world's really thirsty for U.S. spirits, especially whiskey right now. And the New York brand resonates so well. So if there's ways for us to develop New York State exports by participating in those opportunities, we greatly appreciate it. So I'd like to just conclude by reiterating our thanks for all the administration has done to promote the industry, first by streamlining some really outdated regulations, and then also through the promotional opportunities. So it's been a great success story, and we appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Brian, I don't want, we do trade missions, New York State trade missions to boost the economy in the state of New York. I don't want you to think that your product hasn't been represented. We went to Cuba, and Howard Zemsky, who did not win the #1 Commissioner Quarterly Award, but did win an honorable mention. We were in Cuba, and he actually got into a heated debate about whose rum is better, Cuban rum or New York State rum. And it wasn't the most diplomatic thing he ever did. But he put up a spirited defense, since we're not really known for rum. But let's give him a round of applause for standing up. Brian, can you explain to me the branch office? Branch office, by law now, you can open one other tasting facility they call a branch office?
Yes, the Craft Act allowed distilleries to open an additional branch office, which allows you to do any kind of activity that you can do in your distilled spirits plant. But the other industries, to my knowledge, have the ability to open 5 additional branch offices.
5, and you only get one, and it can only be for one distiller. You can't have multiple distilleries using the same facility.
Or a distillery and a brewery, for instance, couldn't partner up on creating a branch office. It's just one branch office per licensee.
Is that the law or regulation? Do you know, Mr. Chairman?
I believe it's regular. I believe we can do something about that quickly.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to hear from Paul Leone, Executive Director of the New York State Brewers Association. Paul?
Thank you. I know there's a lot of thanks coming your way, and I think that they're certainly well-deserved. I'm the first Executive Director for the New York State Brewers Association, and there are now 23 of us across the country as each association's guild is beginning to grow. And so I have the privilege to get together with the other executive directors about a few times a year, and we sit in a room and we talk about the problems and challenges and issues of the brewing industry in each state, and I sit largely quiet in the room because we really do have it good here. So those thanks are certainly well-deserved. That kind of support that's been given to the brewing industry has allowed us to grow in a very steady and sustainable rate. Since last year, when you had put out the tourism and marketing dollars, we're a relatively young association. So those dollars through the grants that have been awarded to the New York State Brewers Association have really helped us. And so we hope that replenishment of that can happen this year so we can continue to grow and keep an eye on this industry. Thanks to our friends at the Wine and Grape Foundation, we were able to do our first in-depth economic impact study. We've seen a lot of numbers, so I won't go too far into that, but we are a $3.5 billion economic impact on New York State, which ranks us 4th nationally, which is pretty significant. Last year, we were ranked number 2 nationally with brewery openings with 67, so only behind Washington State. So we're really growing in New York State. 2 years ago, farm breweries didn't even exist. And now there are over 90. And as a result, there are 9 malt houses. I had 7 when I walked into the room. I noticed in the book there are 2 more that I have. So we've grown by 2 more. So we have 9 malt houses. We have 300 acres of hops planted. We have close to 3,000 acres of barley in the ground. And today there are over 220 breweries, which ranks us 5th nationally. All of this couldn't be possible without the support and the support of the administration, the Senate, the Assembly, the SLA, and many others, including our friends at the Wine and Grape Foundation, who've laid the groundwork over 30 years. And I wanted to add a personal note, because I didn't know you were retiring. Jim Treesice, I've been in this job for 2 years, and I've called Jim more than once for advice on how to best do my job, and he's always made time for me, so thank you. I appreciate it. So with all the progress that we've achieved together, I do have a few areas that I'd like the administration to consider as we move forward. Farm breweries. Farm breweries, we would like them to have the ability to sell farm spirits, cider, and wine by the glass. The hard part for farm breweries right now is to be able to fulfill the 20%. That's not the hard part, but the additional cost that goes along with it. So we feel like if they were able to sell farm wine, spirits, and cider by the glass, that'll help bring extra revenue in and offset some of the additional costs. And also, we would like the ability for farm and New York State labeled wineries and spirits and cideries to be able to sell New York State farm beer in their tasting rooms as well. We really feel like this is necessary to help offset the costs. And it's also a great marketing tool for New York State beverages all the way around. We think that would be very helpful. In terms of the State Liquor Authority, it's come to our attention that there is a question about the ability to contract brew in New York State. For those of you who don't know, contract brewing is a great way for new breweries to get started who don't have the capital and the ability to invest in a brewery right away. So they start off by contract brewing through another brewery, and they build a brand, and then they build a brick and mortar brewery in New York State and start their businesses. And it's also a great, for those who do contract brew, it's a great way for added revenue for them as well and continue their growth in New York State. So if possible, we'd like some clarification on that issue and any adjustments that need to be made to clear up any confusion that there is concerning contract brewing. We'd also like changes to the current marketing permit to allow brewers to buy beer to be tasted at retail establishments from that retail, just like the current tasting permit. The one-stop shop, Sam Filler, Molly Bauer, amazing. They've been fantastic. They've been a huge help to the brewing industry. However, with the growth, the State Liquor Authority still gets a lot of calls. And to echo what Jim had said earlier, his recommendation, it would be nice if the State Liquor Authority had a specialized unit in addition to the one-stop shop to answer some of these calls, so that the issue of brewers calling and getting multiple answers from the same question can be clarified. I think every brewery in the state wants to follow the law. They want to get licensed, and it causes confusion. So if the State Liquor Authority could possibly create some sort of unit to help maybe ease some of the pressure of Molly and Sam, who've done a great job for us. They've been fantastic. Another issue, last week we understand that workers' comp was hiked 23.5% on Class Code 2121, which is affecting breweries and drivers. This is a significant cost increase to breweries around the state, and I think I worry that it might slow down hiring practices if some new hiring, and certainly inhibit growth. So we would like the administration to look into that and see if there's any relief that can be made for that. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about marketing and promotion of New York State craft beer. Our slogan is Think New York, Drink New York. And I want to explain that a little bit. We're not saying with that slogan that you should only drink New York State craft beer. You should drink any beer that you like. But what we're saying is that when you go to a local establishment or restaurant, you should say, what's your local beer first? What do you have that's local? What's your local wine? What's your local cider? Because that's helping small family breweries and cideries and distilleries. So the Think New York, Drink New York campaign this year, we really had a chance to kick off thanks to the advertising dollars that was awarded last year. It really is the first time we were able to get our word out. Overall, craft in the United States is only 11% share. In New York State, that's a little lower at 8% share. And the sales of New York State beer is even a little lower at 6%. So what we're hoping with Think New York, Drink New York is to raise those numbers up to 20%, if possible. If we were able to raise New York craft consumption up 20%, we would have the ability to support 700 breweries in New York State. And that's not a pipe dream. Before Prohibition, there were over 350 breweries in New York State, 77 malt houses, and we own the hop industry across the country, with only a population of 5 million people. You know, today, we're climbing back 220 breweries, 9 malt houses, and a few hundred acres of hops with a population of 20 million. So we certainly have room to grow here in the state. So I just want to mention one last stat that I think is important, that that economic impact study did show that craft beer alone has contributed $450 million in tourism dollars. So the advertising money that was given last year really gave us a great kickstart to not only get New Yorkers to think New York, drink New York, but even anybody around the United States.
Great.
So thank you.
This time, we'd like to hear from Ian Merwin, the founding board member of the New York Cider Association. Ian?
Thank you. I'm going to repeat a lot of what other people have said about how good we have it in New York State in the beverage industry. I've been asked the last couple of years to go around the country and talk to apple growers and cider makers, and when I tell them the regulatory environment that we have in the state, they're just incredulous. I mean, things like being able to self-distribute, bumping the alcohol by volume limit up to 8.5% and still being able to get stuff into grocery stores. These have just had a huge impact, and thank you. I guess what I'm going to advocate today is what can we do to sort of continue that progress. New York State has 780 commercial apple growers. We don't actually know how many cideries we have. We know how many are licensed as farm cideries, but there are a lot of wineries making cider as well. So our apple industry is second in the United States. And compared with Washington, that's the leading state, our apple industry is much more diverse. We grow 20 to 30 varieties in a big way. We have a very well-established processing apple sector, which is going to be necessary to supply the product that we make our ciders with. Our apple industry is in all corners of the state, the North Country, the Lake Ontario Shore, Long Island, Hudson Valley. So it's an industry that's really key to involve the whole state economically. And if we play our cards right in developing cider, cider's been the most rapidly expanding beverage sector since about 2000. We're starting from a small base, but it's been expanded so rapidly that actually if you look at what's happening in the investment, all of the major beer companies are investing in the cider sector, buying up cideries, because they see it as a huge future market. And New York State, I had in my notes, Jim, that we could be the Napa Valley of cider, but I don't want to sell our wine industry short in the state. So suffice it to say that we could be the leading state for high-quality craft ciders in North America. And basically, we just need to keep doing what you've been doing to help us develop that. We recently formed the New York Cider Association. We're now a registered 501c. We're working on membership drive and fundraising and trying to get the organization up and going. It's been great for me to sit here and listen to people like Paul and Jim and see how they built the New York Wine Grape Foundation and the Brewers Association, because we need to do the same thing. I want to raise a couple specific issues where I think some support and some minor changes could really be key for us. And we're talking here, there's the grower side of this, there's the cider making side, and then there's the kind of retail, restaurant, tourism. So there are things that have impacts all along that line. Number one issue is probably the lack of data about cider. We've heard really hard numbers for all the other beverages, but we actually don't know what the economic impact of cider is in New York State. So some help from the state in getting quantitative research, tracking the industry, economic forecasting. There are a lot of apple growers that would love to plant the varieties that we need to make high quality ciders, but they don't know what that market's going to be. So if you could help us get an economic impact study done, as it's been done with the breweries and the wineries, that would be really big. Another issue sort of related to that is that right now, to make a high-quality cider, you need certain apple varieties. And fortunately, we grow quite a few of those now, but there are a number that are what are called bitter sweets and bitter sharps, mostly come from France and England historically, and Spain. And to up the game of the cider makers, we need to grow those varieties. And to do that requires growers to invest. These are not standard varieties they've been growing. So we'd really like to have some incentives, some extension support, which we're getting, but we could use more of it, to help growers figure out which varieties should they grow, how should they grow them, where should they grow them, what are the microclimates that are going to produce the best fruit, the best sugar, acid, tannin chemistry. And that's an area where some targeted state funding, competitive funding that went either directly to growers or to Cornell University programs could be really helpful. Another area that's sort of a very technical and specific, but to the classical cider varieties tend to drop a lot of their fruit as it ripens. So they were selected for that because in Europe their hard cider industry is based on mostly mechanically harvesting. They have machinery that picks up these apples from under the trees, puts them in a bin or a box, and then they can take them to the cidery. Now in New York, because of concerns about E. coli and salmonella and food safety issues, there's the rules are not clear on whether we could mechanically harvest and use drops in hard cider production. We know that it's a no-no for fresh or sweet cider because of the pathogen risks, but it's been well shown that when you ferment cider, yeast does wonderful things. They eliminate any mycotoxins that might be in the apples, and they kill E. coli and salmonella. So as I said, the European industry is based on being able to use these drops and mechanically harvest them. And we'd like some support to develop mechanical harvesting systems for New York State and some clarification, basically, from Ag and Markets and on how we can use drops. It's a little tricky because to make hard cider, you have to make sweet cider. So some of the Ag and Markets inspectors want you to follow the rules for sweet cider, and it can be a tough argument to convince them that the yeast and the fermentations can take care of this. And also, if you talk to most fruit growers, labor shortage is just a huge issue. Having the workforce that you need, you're picking a crop. We're right in the middle of harvest now. You've got about 2 months, so you got to get everything picked and juiced and in the fermentation tanks. So anything that we could do to mechanize that would be really helpful. And then I guess just I want to note in terms of where the state is that the largest cider producer in New York State in the United States is Angry Orchard. Angry Orchard is a division of the Sam Adams Beer Company. They produce 65% of all the hard cider that's consumed in North America. And they just located their new R&D facility and headquarters devoted to cider in the lower Hudson Valley in Orange County on the old Christ Farm. And I actually worked with them a bit in locating that place. And their motives for doing that was that they see New York State as this is going to be where you want to be if you're in the cider industry. So anything we can do to kind of keep that environment, I think, is helpful. I think those are the main points. We may be coming to you for some very targeted support for the Cider Association, things like the membership drive, goals, priorities, and we hope we'll be able to get some funding to help with that as well.
Well stated, well said.
have time for a few comments from people who are the panelists, but also with a guarantee that after lunch we'll have time to open up and hear from more of you. But if we can just hear a few thoughts from Robert Bookman, the counsel for the New York City Hospitality Alliance.
Right. Thank you very much. First, I want to thank Chairman Bradley for continuing what's under your tutelage, Governor, a really business-friendly state liquor authority. They've been real partners for our industry in New York, and I want to thank him for bringing with him today Kerry O'Brien, Tom Donahue, Mike Jones. These have been real partners that we've worked with, and it's really been a sea change in attitude and a great public service, and I want to thank you. A few quick points, as I know time is short. I certainly believe that we do need some sort of ABC law revision working group, under the chairman. It is the most convoluted statute, anybody has ever dealt with, and there are lots of sections and interpretations that are really hurting business and holding back business that I think we can work on. Quickly, I have a chocolatier, a New York City chocolatier, who wants to work with local wine merchants in New York City to ship together her chocolate and her wine, and the rules aren't allowing it, so she's going to have to go out of state and ship it into New York from out of state. It's just silly. Two, we have a lot of on-premises restaurants around the state that have seasonal outdoor spaces as well. But right now, the law requires them to purchase a full liquor license for that outdoor seasonal additional bar. And it's a real extra burden. It makes no sense. They're only using it for a few months a year, but they can't get a seasonal license for their outdoor bar. And that would be a real help and save people, really a couple $1,000s a year. And people love the outdoor seasonal bars anyway. Third, your enhanced ID program. I want to thank you for that, and we want to continue working with your administration on it. New York nightlife establishments, we seize hundreds of fake IDs every week. And the fake ID get more and more sophisticated. Just go Google fake IDs. You'll get 100 websites where you can buy them, around the world now. It's a real security issue on top of, let alone, the 21 age drinking issue. It's a real security issue. They beat scanners now, but your new enhanced driver ID, I think, is a real great program. I think we need to do more together to get the word out and work with the scanning companies, as well. It's a big problem. We're really on the front lines, and we want to work with you on that. Fourth, a small issue, but persistent nevertheless, we keep getting inquiries. Private non-for-profit club licenses, they have a bunch of benefits that they're allowed, but one of the issues are they're not supposed to be competing with for-profit establishments, like catering, for example. And the rules are really unclear, to be fair to them, and we think we need to work with the Liquor Authority in clarifying this really unfair competition that these non-for-profit clubs, like the Harvard Club or others, are now, to enhance their business, they're really going into the for-profit business, and they're competing with licensed for-profit catering halls, and restaurants. And last is non-for-profit organizations in their annual fundraisers are always doing all kinds of raffles and other types of, events like that might be semi-called gambling. And we really need some clarification under the liquor law, because these fundraising events happen at licensed premises. We really need some clarification about what's allowed and what's not allowed. Governor, I was in the audience when you came a few years ago to an event when you were Attorney General, speaking at the JCC for Rockland County. You were honoring somebody there, and you were very funny when you noticed that it's a Rockland event, and you were New York State Attorney General, and it was being held in a New Jersey catering hall. And I think one of the reasons for that was they were doing some sort of raffle that night, and it wasn't clear whether it was kosher to do it in New York. So we're losing business, and I think a clarification, could work all that out. So that's 5 ideas in 4 minutes.
Good.
Well done, Rob.
Let me get... Only a good attorney could do 5 ideas in 4 minutes.
Thank you.
Just as we've been talking around it, whenever we can clarify something by regulation, that's obviously the easiest and the fastest. So everything that's been suggested, we're going to first look if we can do it by regulation. Second, individual law changes are specific, and they're the easiest to do with the legislature. But someone suggested a working group to basically rewrite the law, if that's the right way to do this, because the law, as I said in the opening comments, was written for a totally different time. and we're correcting old errors, the right way to do it is to start with a blank piece of paper and just write a law that fits today. And that's a project that I would undergo with the legislature and the industry. And at the same time, to the other two, do what you can do by regulation and any specific laws. There's something I'd like you to help me with. The New York City market is a tremendous market. If we got a larger share of the New York City market, it would transform this industry overnight. We have been trying to find ways to offer incentives to the New York City market to buy New York. There are a lot of legal impediments. We can't legally offer a tax incentive or a certain incentive that would affect interstate commerce, et cetera. There has to be ways that we can get the New York City establishments to buy more of the products represented in this room. They do those special night out things in New York City, right? Why can't you have a night out where our promotional campaign pays a fee and it's all New York State products? The bars serve New York beers that night. And we'll make it a whole taste of New York, taste New York that night. We have to get the restaurants to buy more. We have to get the bars to buy more. We have to get the hotels to buy more. You know, you could talk about the cideries, any of these industries. If we just get a couple of more points to the New York City market, it is transformative. And I really believe if they knew the availability and the quality and the connection that they could make with the winery or the owner, it would happen. But we need to make that connection better.
We agree.
So I'd really look for your help on that.
And we have some ideas on that. Look, we have over 11,000 on-premises licensees in the city of New York. I mean, the potential there is amazing. We've spoken to Jim, about ideas like that and some of your other people in the past. We'd really like to follow up on it. We do have ideas for that. We think New York City could really lead the way in selling all of these products.
And we'll provide an incentive. We'll provide an advertising incentive, whatever we can do. But it's frustrating because you have such a big market there and a relatively small industry.
Absolutely.
Senator Bonasek says, hold the next summit in New York City, and if the businesses don't buy New York products, they have to move to Jersey. I second that. I added the second part, but the first part is a good idea. But if you could work on that and...
I'd love to work on that. We have some real ideas that we think with some minor incentives, we could really dramatically increase the sales of New York products in the city of New York.
Great, thank you.
Maybe one more question?
Yeah.
We'll have a final comment before lunch from Julie Suarez, the Assistant Dean of Government and Community Relations at Cornell University. Julie?
Governor, thank you so much. Cornell University's College of Ag and Life Sciences is just so honored and privileged to be the state's land grant institution. And we really appreciate your partnership, your support, because we know that all the wonderful work that our faculty, our extension personnel, and our scientists do wouldn't be possible without your leadership, Governor, your understanding of the land grant mission, and the understanding and support of our good friends and partners in the New York State Legislature. Our primary role as the land grant is really to transmit knowledge, to take research innovation like the Traminette grape that you talk about and turn that into economic opportunities for people in New York. And Governor, I assure you that I had some very eloquent remarks prepared when I was going to tell you this horrible problem that our researchers have, but you've already solved it. So thank you. And I'll have to tell you that my remarks were quite eloquent when I talked about our problem with the New York State Ag Experiment Station, because the most horrible thing that an educator can do is to turn people away from a course, a technical training, a lab service, a consultative problem, because we just physically don't have enough space in our facility at the New York State Ag Experiment Station in Geneva. Jim Trezeis, of course, said it best when he said that the wine industry has been a 30-year overnight success story, but the growth in other sectors of the farm-based beverages have meant that our college just simply can't keep up with the demand. And so as soon as we post on our website that one of our wonderful people, a couple of our Cornell folks are here today, Chris Gerling, when he announces that he's doing a new cider workshop, the spaces fill up. we have a wait list. The next person who calls, we say, I'm very sorry, you're going to have to wait for another 6 months. And so I was going to tell you that, again, with my eloquence, that with just a little bit of an investment of state money, that we have proven metrics that show that we could turn that investment into new classroom and distance learning at our facility into $56 million a year annually in increased economic growth. We know that based on our evaluation metrics for the people who take our courses. So, Governor, I'm more pleased than I can ever say to say thank you for your continued investment, your support in the land grant mission, and for ending our scientists, our faculty members' frustration at having to tell people that they can't actually take the benefit of our knowledge as part of our land grant mission. So thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate the investment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Well, thank everyone for participating this morning, and invite you all to get some lunch, and we'll see you back here at 12:55 for a 1 p.m. start. Thank you.